Hey everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, welcome to our podcast.
Today we're covering the movie that launched the Marvel Cinematic Universe in 2008, Iron Man.
And this franchise-starring film shows the origin of Tony Stark's journey to becoming Iron Man, as he devotes his time to building several suits to combat evil and save the world.
And before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get updates on future podcasts and we'll pause video.
And more Marvel Cinematic Universe first films.
Can't believe we didn't do this sooner. The
Right.
only one we had covered at that time was Infinity War when
Right.
it was coming out. So
An Endgame.
yeah. So now
And
we're
Black
gonna cover So now we're gonna cover a lot of these MCU movies now that over 20 films have been out. The Infinity Saga is over, and now they've gone on to a new chapter of the cinematic universe.
And for most of these, for Superhero Month this year, we are covering the first.
Right.
The first one in each
Trilogy.
segment of each trilogy or each segment of the franchise.
Right. And for this one, it was just getting off the ground, and you can tell there was a certain way they made the movies back in 2008 going to the 2010s because it's a vastly different feel from how you get from these later movies.
But of course, when we watched it years ago when it came out, or just at least a decade ago, it didn't seem that way to us. It was new and exciting, and to us there seemed to be a lot of action. But compared to the later movies, there's not much action.
Right.
But what we discovered, having watched the initial animated Iron Man that took place during a different time frame or period, this movie almost parallels that animated.
Right. For here, it felt, rewatching the movie, compared to the movies now, it feels more like a drama, like an action drama. It's still superhero, but there's a lot of story, a lot of talking, not so much where you want to turn it off.
And I'm like, this is a real origin story.
Yeah, because clearly that's how it should be written. So for here, it's a lot more drama and the origin, and while there is, of course, superhero action in here and fighting evil, it looks like the story and the drama is first, and about becoming the journey to becoming this hero. And as you said, it ends up being parallel in the anime because the anime takes place in the MCU.
Well, not the anime, but the movie we saw that took place, I think it was supposed to be the 40s.
Oh yes, the Invincible Iron
Yes.
Man movie. Yes, which had the same exact feel as this one, just different time frame, and Tony's father was alive.
Right, and in this one, War Machine or Rhodes was as brilliant as Tony. Was
Right.
really surprised.
Right. And in this one, Terrence Howard played Rhodey.
Which we've completely forgot about him being so many years. You're just so used to Don Cheadle being War Machine.
Right.
And then I looked in the case and I was like, oh my gosh, I completely forgot. Yeah, Terrence Howard played him. And then he was replaced by Don Cheadle.
Right.
If
So
any of you know why or remember why, let us know in the comments below.
Also, another difference is that Pepper was also portrayed differently. In the second one, you see from the second movie on, you kind of thought she was always pretty headstrong like Tony, but then you actually found in the first movie she actually was a little bit mousy. Like, yeah, she took care of everything, but she had a scared side to her, which that completely went away the second movie. So
Right.
clearly that wasn't working for the character. Maybe someone wasn't liking it, so they kind of made an alteration in the character where she was just as ballsy as Tony.
Right. She also was a redhead and became a blonde. But I'm glad you brought that up because I was thinking the same thing, how a lot of the characters within this movie were either the actors were changed or there was character development or change in the second movie.
Right.
And as you were saying, this was the first one. And so they did a lot of upgrades, changes, and character development or adjustment from then on.
Right.
And you can say that after the first Iron Man, there were no more mousy women.
Right, that's true. And another thing to point
And I
out
don't
that
know,
here,
I would say mousy. I
Well,
would
I was
say
trying to
the
think of another
way
word.
in which they portrayed her to be more helpless.
right, that's
and-
like the damsel in distress
Right,
type
exactly.
thing.
So I wouldn't say mousy, but how they had her portray herself that way. But then after that, they realized that wasn't a good idea.
Right.
And from that point on, you know, you see strong women in the MCU, which was a vastly great improvement.
Right. And that's also taken form from these other characters when they make changes from the comics or animation to live action. And we see, you know, this is probably where Chris Hemsworth got the idea to change Thor. We have not covered Thor yet of this podcast, but it seems that maybe this is where he got the idea to alter his own character, because he said that he was bored playing this princely character. He wanted someone more fun, someone more like an Earth person. So Thor ended up being a rebel party animal instead of a regal prince. So maybe perhaps Iron Man gave inspiration that before the first Thor movie and said, hey, if it works so well for Pepper and for Rhodey and these other characters, I can change my own character and attempt to improve on what didn't need improving.
But it was interesting to see how focused he was, and I know some people probably say, like with Batman, well, he's a billionaire playboy.
So I think he probably outranks Bruce.
But I don't think it matters how much money you have or don't have. He had that mindset and that focus.
Right.
And he really wanted to do something better than having prepared weapons of war, which is what he had been doing.
Right.
And also the guy that saved him, who gave him the
arc.
The
arc reactor. Yeah.
Yes, gave him that. And then comes along Jeff Bridges, who turns around later on and plays somebody's dad later in another movie. And I'm not going to say what or whom in case you haven't seen it, spoil it. But he comes and he wants to take
over
technology and do what he didn't want to do, but on a grander scale of controlling everything and killing everybody. And I think it was a very big character development, especially during that time, because you really didn't have these type of characters in roles where they saw that what I'm doing is just not helping the world, is not leaving a positive legacy, it's not doing what I want to do. This is never what I dreamed of. I'm going to fix it. Mm-hmm. And immediately he did. And I did like that about his character. He's like, you know what, this isn't working, this isn't right. You know, he almost died and he saw that, hey, I need to make a change. I need to do something different. And he immediately went about it. Not someday, not I'll get to it, not but I want to make X amount of money first. He just did it.
Right. And there were also two more interesting things they had in this movie they sell for future movies. One would be that the group that had kidnapped him, and you found out who's behind it, the name of the group from in Afghanistan, it was called the 10 Rings, which was a huge foreshadowing, 20 years in the making pretty much, or more, for the upcoming Shang-Chi movie and the 10 Rings. So it kind of was like right here, and then who knew that would foreshadow all these years later into this totally different movie.
Right.
So can't wait to see how that plays out. And the second thing would be, well, it's not really a spoiler because the majority of you probably seen the movie already. It came out in 2008. It would be on how the world knows about Iron Man. But when we found out, Iron Man was a secret for a while in the comics until he finally revealed it. Well, it looks like for this movie they jumped head first into it. He didn't know how to keep a secret.
Right.
So he's like, okay, just make him here's your alibi and an excuse so they don't connect you to it. And he couldn't say it, so he said, I am Iron Man. And then that was it. I'm not gonna miss all this publicity and fame and stuff. I'm Iron Man. Like, and it's over.
It's like, this is just too much work. It's just too much trouble.
Just tell him I'm Iron Man. Like, okay, we're leaving.
Okay. So you make a good point. I'll go ahead and say that Jeff Bridges ended up playing Peter Quill's dad in Guardians of the Galaxy in the second movie.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, he was the bad guy in here, and then he comes back being a sort of bad guy dad.
Right.
It's like,
yes, that's the thing.
It's evil.
And that's kind of what they did with Josh Brolin. He went from playing Thanos, then he played Cable. Mm-hmm. So I guess this happens a bit for the MCU, where these people end up playing two roles in the same universe, playing different characters.
Mm-hmm. Which is kind of unusual for a franchise.
Right.
But we can say that both of these people did it well. It worked.
Right.
So we know you've seen Iron Man. So let us know what you think in the comments below. If you haven't, you're really missing out. And as you know, they've rebooted the MCU. So go ahead, if you've never seen any of these movies, go ahead and start now. And of course, as we said, we start with the first one, Iron Man, and let us know what you think in the comments below. No, they're not on Netflix. No, they're not on any streaming services unless it's Disney Plus.
Yeah, maybe that.
That would be it. So you'll have to buy them, and you can get great prices on Amazon. And sometimes these things even show up in dollar stores. So just give it a try and let us know what you think.
Right. And be sure to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get updates on future podcasts and more than Paws videos.
And more MCU.
Yes. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Rascal Entertainment.
And I'm Mom Entertainment.
Have a fantastic day.
Peace.